Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us here tonight on King Jordan Radio for Thursday, February 18th, 2016. Tonight on the show, we're going to discuss Florida teen arrested for posing as a doctor. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the new series, The People versus O.J. Simpson on the FX network, which is getting huge ratings. We'll talk about the recent allegations against one Peyton Manning comes 20 years later after the so-called alleged incident has occurred. There is news on Jodi Arias, and there is news on Manny Pacquiao as he destroys the gay people and their community. Tonight we are joined with defense attorney and CNN legal analyst. He is the one and only New York defense attorney seen Saturdays on CNN. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Richard Herman. Good evening, Richard. How are you?
Were you going to call me The Rock just now? Were you calling me The Rock, Richard? I'll take that. Jordan, let me say thank you. How are you? Thank you for having me on your show again. I always love hanging out with you for a little while, and I must tell you, the people, your fans and listeners are just incredible. On the day that I'm going to do a show, I get emails, text messages, I see the posts on Facebook. You have such a loyal following, and their people are just so gracious. And if I started ripping the names off, I would leave someone out, and I don't want to do that. You know who you are, and you're just wonderful, and I know you make Jordan, and you make me and Joey and anyone else who calls in, you make us feel really good. So thank you, and we try to enlighten you a little bit, educate you a little bit, and I try to bring a little humor to it also. So let's rock and roll,
Thank you,
brother.
Richard. And yes, and you and Joey have been here since the get-go. In fact, it's since 2011 now that you have been on the show. So you and Joey are the only ones that have been on the show and regulars for the past couple of years. So I really appreciate that. So that's one fact. But there is a lot of news to get into. Let's start out with the Florida teen accused of posing as a doctor. Let's hear the story behind the story, and we'll get your take on the other
Florida
side.
18-year-old who calls himself Dr. Love is under arrest this morning for practicing medicine without a license. ABC's Steve Osensami has the story.
Take a good look at the young man in the white doctor's coat seen here being hauled to jail by a Florida narcotics team.
They say you examined a patient today.
You will from my lawyer.
Hard to believe, but police say that Dr. Malachi Love Robinson is no doctor at all. And in fact, he's a teenager, accused this morning of trying to pass himself off as a physician for months. Investigative reporters at our West Palm Beach affiliate WPBF 25 have been following the 18-year-old and even sat him down for an interview. He admits that a year ago, he was the same teenager police detained at a local hospital after a gynecologist found him in an exam room wearing a hospital lab coat and a stethoscope around his neck.
I didn't snatch out a baby. I didn't do any of that.
Police say he liked to call himself Dr. Love and say he fooled his victims with this elaborate website and this glowing bio where he calls himself a well-rounded professional who uses psychotherapy, electrotherapy, and a long list of other techniques to heal patients. In early January, he held a grand opening for this medical clinic. That's where police sent an undercover cop posing as a patient. When he started giving her a physical exam, she put him in handcuffs.
How do you feel now that all the people that believed in you, that thought you knew what you were talking about?
I'm hurt because of the accusations and the allegations, but like I said, this is not the first time where I've been accused, and I will pursue this.
He's being held on $3,000 bond, set to appear in court later this morning. For Good Morning America, Steve Osensami, ABC News, Atlanta.
Richard Herman, a very interesting story as you have a teenager accused for the second time of playing doctor. This is a serious offense. What's your thoughts on this?
I like how he says he's going to pursue it. That's interesting. He's going to pursue it. Yeah, he's going to pursue it all right. He's going to pursue it to the level of a third-degree felony in the state of Florida. 7 counts charged with, including grand theft and fraud, and they're going to add up how much money he got. And, you know, this young Doogie Howser who saw a couple of doctor TV shows decided he's going to be a doctor, and that's just nice, you know, except that the doctors that are out there go undergraduate 4 years, then they go 4 years to medical school, then they do an internship for 3 years, and then they basically don't know anything. They have to then start practicing medicine. So, you know, for this guy to do this, the societies and jurisdictions say, no, you can't practice medicine without a license. You can't practice law without a license, and that's a misdemeanor in most states. But here it's a felony in Florida, and it just shows you the level of mental illness out there which pervades our whole society. And obviously this individual is beyond deranged. He's lost his marbles, and he is acting out some sort of fantasy, and he got caught. And now he's going to pay the price because this guy, you know, potentially is going to go to prison on this one. And it's sad, and who knows if he hurt people and he gave people bad advice, and of course he doesn't know what he's talking about. And, you know, he holds himself out as having psychology degrees and a PhD, and he's qualified in holistic medicine and whatever that means. And there are some great holistic doctors, or I don't know if you call them doctors, but there's some great holistic therapies for people that are sick. And look, I had cancer, and you know, when you get something like that, you'll try anything. You know, I mean, you want to get healed, and sometimes some of this holistic stuff can work, but here. It just, you know, it's so sad what happened here, and you know, this guy's going to pay the price now. He's going to pay the price.
And as you said, he's going to pursue it in his own words.
He's going to pursue
definitely
it.
Sounds like intelligent, but at the same time, narcissist and a case of mentally ill.
Yeah, he's definitely deranged. He has a mental problem. This is a repeated. You know, they gave him a slap on the wrist. They told him stop doing this. He can't stop. The guy is absolutely psychotic. And you know, I had some clients in Brooklyn. This guy was chopping cars, and that's a big crime. You can't take a car and chop it up and sell the parts, and you just can't do that legal. You know, there's ways to do it legally and illegal, and this guy's doing it illegal. And every time he'd get arrested, and it got to the point after the third or fourth time where he went to prison, and then after that he got out, and he actually went to Attica for a while. And he got out and he couldn't stop. He just had to continue to do it. And this guy here...
Isn't there a drug he could take?
Yeah, I mean, well, the mother said that he wasn't taking his medication. So that sort of lets you know what's going on here. The kid's very sick, and some people have sympathy for him, but I don't, because he already had the slap on the wrist, and that was the wake-up call to get the help and stop doing it, because you're going to put other people at harm. And who knows if he's hurt people, given them bad advice or whatever he's done. So now he's going to really pay the price.
Yeah, and like you said, there are very good doctors, holistic, what have you. And what do you think something like this would happen in a New York court? What would the penalty be here in New York?
You know, I'm not sure if practicing medicine without a license is a felony in New York, but certainly if you add in grand theft and fraud and some of the other counts, it would rise to felony level. But look, it's dangerous. That's why there's licensing requirements, and you can't. It's nice. I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. Okay, great. Well, you got to go to school. You got to get education. You have to get the tools to equip you to do this. And look, there have been cases where people have held themselves out as lawyers and opened offices and given advice and shown up in court. And you know, I've seen this happen. So it's out there in society. But these are sick people, and this guy is absolutely mentally ill.
Totally agree with you. Let's go to this clip via CBS Sports. Peyton Manning is the subject. Let's take a listen.
Tennessee football program and former quarterback Peyton Manning are under fire after an alleged incident occurred Going back all the way to 1996, this is part of a group of incidents that have led to a lawsuit against the university. Dustin Dopurak joins us, covers Tennessee football for the Knoxville News-Sentinel. Dustin, tell me about this suit.
Well, Peyton Manning, it's not, he's not the victim in that case is not a plaintiff, but basically that incident is kind of listed as in a long list of incidents that are claimed to have produced a hostile sexual environment in Tennessee. And basically there are 6 plaintiffs, 5 of which are alleged rape victims in recent cases that have allegedly occurred since 2013. And they're saying that basically that is sort of part of this buildup over time that shows that Tennessee hasn't handled these well. They're also basically making an argument that the procedures that Tennessee uses to adjudicate sexual assault cases within the university are basically that they are not compliant with Title IX. Basically, that there's an amount of due process that's given to the accused in that case that's inappropriate by Title IX guidelines. So basically, that's kind of the core of the lawsuit, and sort of Manning is sort of added into this as one of the lawsuits that go back. I think there was one listed incident that goes back to 1995. So Manning's in there, and then obviously information has come out, documents have come out that hadn't been previously released from a lawsuit involving that case that goes back to, I think, 2003.
All right, so one, do you think it's fair for others to use this to discuss the Peyton Manning case, which is 20 years old? Your just personal opinion as a journalist.
When you say this trial, you mean like the recently added lawsuit, you mean?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I mean, on some level, I guess I wonder how this didn't become a bigger story before. I mean, I think as far as how the lawsuit's drawn up and the argument that's being made, it makes sense because you're saying that this is something that goes back for a long time, that this is something that's been inherent in Tennessee. If that's the argument that you're making, if that's the lawsuit you're making, then it's got to be involved in that. I guess I'm sort of surprised that wasn't looked at as old news by everybody. Obviously, it was covered here. It was covered locally. But it seemed like it was something that never just necessarily made a splash nationally for some reason, when it came out, when it was reported then. So I guess, I mean, it's fair for the lawsuit. I guess it's just odd in general, and I think it's fair that Peyton be criticized over that in general. It's just odd that it's becoming sort of more of a centralized topic now than it was at the time.
How old are you?
33.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I'm 40, so I was in college at the time. It was just kind of one, it was a different era. Two, I still feel like it felt like it's at least reported as more like a prank, and then has kind of grown into...
The accusation has kind of evolved over time as well. It initially was sort of reported as a prank, and then, basically what's sort of being alleged now is something obviously far worse than that.
Yeah, but I think it should be deemed as sexual harassment more than sexual assault. But because I think the sexual assault, like, whoa, Peyton Manning allegedly sexually assaulted somebody, like, well, what did he do? And then you hear it like, oh, well, that's gross. But I don't know exactly what I would term it. Would term it. All right. So what about the University of Tennessee? How much does this affect their athletic director?
I don't know how much it affects their athletic director. I guess it sort of depends on what all gets proven in terms of how far they push this thing. I guess the most, explosive allegation that stands out is something that the athletic director, and even Coach Butch Jones would have to own if it's proven, is that, there's an allegation in the lawsuit that says that a teammate of A.J. Johnson and Michael Williams, this is in 2014, A.J. Johnson and Michael Williams are one of the guys that are accused. They're set for trial in June and July on rape cases, both involving the same victim. And it's alleged that Trey Bowles, who was a wide receiver on that team at the time, gave that woman a ride to the hospital and, supported her decision to go to authorities.
Right.
For that, he was, beaten up by players in the locker room that week that he was assaulted by them. So now
the problem with that is he on the stand, he testified that wasn't the case. That there was no fight.
That's not quite right.